Affan was an exceptional character. You know, a lot of us focus on Abu Bakr, Umar, and those are legends in the Ummah, right? And we heard a lot about who they are. But when we get to Uthman ibn Affan, very few of us, our young people, struggle to imagine him, struggle to understand his personality, struggle to connect with his character. And I hope, inshallah, by the end of this session, we have a better understanding of who Uthman ibn Affan is, radiyallahu anhu. So let us begin with some of the features. Who was he? Number one, he was known as Dhun Nurayn. Dhun Nurayn because he's married, and he was married to the Prophet Muhammad's two daughters at different times. He was married to Ruqayya, and then when she passed away, he married Kulthum. He was also known as the one who made the two hijras, Dhul Hijratayni, because he migrated to Abyssinia, and he was actually the first to migrate to Abyssinia, and then he migrated to Medina and settled with the companions in Medina. He was also known as the person that has been gifted a beautiful voice in the Quran. So he used to recite the Quran beautifully, and had a very deep connection with the Quran. So he would make a habit, even when he was the Khalif of the Muslims, he would take some time with the Quran, and he would just recite the Quran and connect with the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was known as Abi Umar before Islam, and he was known as Abi Abdullah after Islam, and he has a very, very sad story with his family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him by taking his son, his only son from Ruqayya, and he had a really, really terrible sickness that affected his face and affected his skin, and he eventually passed away from that. And soon after, his wife Ruqayya, after settling in Medina, mourning the death of a bunch of things were happening, and she passed away as well before the Prophet Muhammad gave him the chance to marry his second daughter, Kulthum. Now, let us begin to, these are just highlights, features of who he is, and we'll get into some of those in detail. But let us just try to understand his personality a little bit. I want you to imagine Uthman. If you imagine he's standing in front of you now, he's not too tall, not too short. When he's around tall people, he seems tall. When he's around shorter people, he blends well with them. So he was not known for being too tall, not being too short, and he had a very, very, very beautiful skin that was described as being tanned. He had tanned skin. He had eyes that were very bold and confident eyes. And he was known specifically for his modesty. He was known to be also, like, he had a lot of hair, it was prominent on his body, and he was known to be very, very shy. He was the type of person that would not make eye contact, especially with the people that he respected, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He respected the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he would not make too much eye contact. He would lower his eyes, and he walked with dignity and respect, and he was known specifically for his modesty. And we'll look at a few stories in a minute, inshallah. Now, he has a word, a sentence that he described himself through, and this sentence is authentic. So imagine Uthman ibn Affan, he says, ما تغنيت ولا تمنيت ولا مسست ذكري بيميني منذ بايعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وما شربت خمرا في جاهلية ولا في إسلام وما زنيت أبدا. He's describing himself, and the athar is authentic. It's sahih. Now listen to this carefully. When he was asked, describe, who you are, he's talking to his friends. He's sharing his past. He says, I never liked to sing. I was not the type to, kind of get into that state where you're running around laughing, enjoying. I was never the type to sing. And I'm not getting into the validity of halal and haram. It's just personal choice. I didn't like to sing. وَلَا تَمَنَّيْتُ, and I have never, ever told a lie in my entire life. I have never told a single lie in my life. And ever since I gave my hand to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when my hand touched Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's hand to give him the oath of allegiance, I felt that moment was so sanctified that I would shy away from even touching my private part with my hand. The same hand that touched the hand of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he wouldn't use his right hand in any shape or form. He would use his left to relieve himself or whatnot. But that goes to show the level of respect. This hand that touched Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's hand, no way that I can disrespect or dishonor that hand in any shape or form. Can you imagine that level of respect? And he added, وما, listen to this carefully, وما شربت خمرا في جاهلية ولا في إسلام. And I never touched alcohol before Islam in the Jahiliyyah or after Islam. And I never committed zina. I never committed zina. This is how he described himself. And these are the qualities you will find in the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will empower, will give blessing to. Now what's amazing about Uthman, some of us may not know this, but he was the jewel of Quraysh. He was the jewel of Quraysh. So mothers, when they used to tell their kids, you know when you tell your kid, hey, I want you to grow up to be like this or that, this is a good role model. The mothers and the fathers of Quraysh would say, أحبك الرحمن حب قريش لعثمان. أحبك الرحمن حب قريش لعثمان. May Allah allow the merciful to love you in the same way that Quraysh loves Uthman. Uthman had this character that was very pleasant. His smile was pleasant. He was not the type to make too much noise. But at the same time, he was very, very strategic. He built one of the greatest businesses. He was a businessman. He sold, silk, and he sold, cloth, and he endeavored into many businesses. For some time, he was involved in gold and jewelry. So he had a very strong business. And in his business ethics, he never told a lie. So later on in Medina, when they asked him, how did you build your business to this level? How did you get it to this level? How did you make so much money? This is the key. Make every person genuinely feel special and never compromise your integrity in your dealings. And you'll find that the best, you see the best doctors, the best business people, they will make the person that is least known feel special, and they will make the person that is most known feel special. They will give everybody the respect that they deserve. They don't flip and flop. They don't treat somebody with respect and then turn around and treat some. They're continuously consistent in showing everybody respect. Now, Uthman ibn Affan, he married 8 women in total. And as I mentioned, he married Ruqayya, then Kulthum, then a few others afterwards. And the women, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him. The wives that he married, many of them, most of them actually got sick and passed away. Got sick and passed away. And as I mentioned, he had to bury his own son also, who got sick and passed away in his own life. Imagine the amount of tests that these companions went through. Can you imagine? When one of us loses a son, loses a daughter, it's a big test, and you know how difficult it is. Or loses a loved one, a wife, you lose your husband. It's so difficult. Yeah, Uthman ibn Affan, he had this special relationship with Ruqayya, his first wife, the daughter of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They loved each other to the point where people used to say, if you want an example of a beautiful marriage, look at the marriage of Ruqayya and Uthman. And he buried her. It was such a tearful moment. And we're going to come to how that actually became a defining chapter in how he was later viewed by Muslims who liked him and Muslims who also developed, unfortunately, a distaste based on the propaganda that was spread about him. Now, the relationship that he had with Ruqayya was so special that when they asked him, who is considered to be your best friend? He would say, my wife. And they would tell him, but she's the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wouldn't you say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is your best friend? He would say, of course, he's a great friend. And he's a dear friend. And he's the Prophet and the Messenger. And I have immense respect for him, which makes the reason, one of the reasons that contributes to me having this special relationship with my wife is because she's the daughter of a Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How many of you would be able to describe your wife as your best friend? Describe your husband as your best friend. Some of us say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Inna lillahi wa we're roommates sharing, the same room, right? I'm making dua to Allah to take me first. La hawla wa la quwwata. He was known for having a special relationship with his wife. And the story of his Islam is a very powerful story. He was a businessman, so he was in the same circle with Umar and Abu Bakr and these people, and he was in the distant circle with the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he used to do trade and business with the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he knew that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was an exceptional businessman, an exceptional, honest person of integrity and genuineness. And what's amazing, subhanAllah, is one day his mom had become Muslim. His father did not become Muslim, and there were some of other members in his family that became Muslim, including distant relatives. And so he was starting to hear about Islam and the Prophet ﷺ, and he had a dream. And in this dream, a caller called unto him, "Wake up, it is time. It is time for change. A man will come to show you the way." So he told his family. And his own family, some of them become Muslim, told him, this could be an indication for you to accept Islam, because the time has come and it's the truth. So he said, "Tell me more about Islam." They told him. And he said, subhanAllah, like he's been thinking about it for a while. He says, whatever has come from the words of this man, Muhammad ﷺ, has always been the truth. He went to him willingly, voluntarily. Imagine, through Abu Bakr as well, who was a friend, and he was communicating with Abu Bakr. And he was the fourth person to become Muslim. He came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Listen to this. Listen to how amazing this moment is. He said, "Ya Rasulullah, tell me about Islam." Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam starts describing Islam is this and this and this. And before the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam starts into it, he said, "Stop, say no more. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah." He recognized the truth. Some of us, we have to hear a lecture for an hour, 2 hours, 10 hours before we make the smallest commitments. It's good for you, it's right for you, but you're struggling. You have this hesitation. Uthman did not hesitate. "Ya Rasulullah, I believe. I'm Muslim, ready to become Muslim." Just like that. And there's an important lesson for us to take from this specific moment in his life. Whenever you see good, don't hesitate. Whenever you see the opportunity to do good or the invitation for good, don't think twice. Because those chances come around rarely. And we're privileged. Look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inviting you to do good. Don't turn an opportunity away. And so he would actually tell the companions, there once upon a time came a time where I was the fourth of Islam. Because he was the fourth person. He said, I was 25% of Islam. Can you imagine? What an amazing, amazing legacy for you to be that early on. Now, to understand, subhanAllah, him a little bit better, Allah blessed him with 9 boys, 7 girls, and to give you some ages, he was 34 years of age when he became Muslim. He was roughly, 5 years younger, roughly, than the Prophet ﷺ. At the age of 37, so roughly 3 years after becoming Muslim, he ended up doing the migration. And at the age of 57, he witnessed the Prophet ﷺ's death. And at the age of 82, he was assassinated. I want you to imagine, when we say he spent 12 years of his life as the Khalifa of the Muslims, and we're going to come to that, by the end of his life, he was 82 years of age. And this is very important. A man who's in his 80s, who's in his 70s, has seen enough of life. He's seasoned. He knows. He's got the experience. And so when we're trying to understand his political decisions, much of which we're not going to be able to get into today, it's important to situate that within the context of his age. He served as the Khalifa for around 12 years minus 12 days. So 12 years minus 12 days, subhanAllah. And one special moment in Uthman's life is when the Prophet ﷺ said, "Bring Uthman to me." And Aisha radiallahu anha was witnessing, and some of the companions were witnessing from afar. And the Nabi ﷺ brought him close, and he whispered in his ears.
And then he asked Uthman, do you understand? أفهمت أعلمت? Do you understand? Have you comprehended what this is about? He said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. I understood. And his face changed and became sorrowful, like he heard some not so good news. And the companions eventually, when later on they knew what happened to Uthman, they said perhaps it was in that moment that the Prophet ﷺ was preparing him for what would eventually happen at the end of his life. Aisha described the Prophet ﷺ as one sitting down. And Uthman was outside doing some stuff, business and stuff. First, Abu Bakr walked in. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was sitting back, relaxing. You know, when you're in your own home, you're relaxing. So he's sitting back, relaxing. Abu Bakr comes in, sits down, and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ remains relaxed. Umar comes in, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ remains relaxed. Uthman comes in, and it was his habit, he was subtle. He was a man of subtlety. You know, some people, they really appreciate the subtlety. So he coughed before he came to the door. And the Prophet ﷺ sat up. He sat up in a more formal sitting position. And Aisha noticed that. Uthman came in and sat down. Finished, everybody left. So Aisha was very inquisitive. The curiosity of a wife. She said, Ya Rasulullah, when Umar came in and Abu Bakr came in, you didn't change your posture. You were very, relaxed, and you were reclining on the seats. Why did you change your posture when Uthman came in? Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he responded, Inna Uthman rajulun hayy. Uthman is a man of modesty. He's a man of shyness. And I was afraid that if I was sitting back, he would have been too shy to ask me what he came for. He would have assumed I'm too comfortable, and he would have been too shy to interrupt my comfort. So I wanted to give him the posture of I'm ready to serve. You know, when you imagine you walk into somebody's office and they're just like on their phone, relaxing. You feel bad asking. They're having a moment. So you're gonna come back at a later time when they're, at their work. I'm gonna come to you in your office maybe not in the office, right? First, you walk into somebody and they're in their home, in the living room, relaxing. You feel bad asking a sheikh, if you're chilling with him, can you do this for me? But then when you show up at their office and they're sitting, they have the papers, they have the pen, they know that that's their time allocated for work. So he said, I changed my position to make myself more welcoming to Uthman because he was a man of shyness. Let that sink in. He was so shy, and some have understood that to also be about time, and others have said also the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ covered his leg, covered himself, because Uthman was also shy in that context. Can you imagine? Some of us, subhanAllah, were blunt. And we have a culture that celebrates bluntness. But there's beauty in haya. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he mentioned that this haya is shurba min al-iman. It's a very large fraction of iman. And whoever has not been given haya will struggle to embrace iman. And whoever has been given haya will be able to tap into much of iman. May Allah make us people of haya. Ya Rabb, Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. Now, Uthman ibn Affan was the first, and his family was the first to migrate towards Abyssinia, the Habasha. And he had his business, he was successful, he had his money. So what he did is he spent his money, and he had prepared for the Muslims that were going with him, a few Muslims, and they were able to go first to test the waters out. So imagine when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wanted to send somebody to test Abyssinia. Is it a good place? It is a safe place for the Muslims. Who's gonna go? Uthman volunteered. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I'll go. Can you imagine the bravery? And he takes with him Ruqayya, his family. And they go and they build a great relationship with the Abyssinians and the king. And because he was very, very, again, elegant and delightful to be around, when the Muslims eventually migrated to Abyssinia, a lot of it had to do with the impression that Uthman left on the people when he arrived there. And his family. So we shouldn't take that for granted. And what's amazing is when the Prophet ﷺ would ask, he would send people to check, like, how's Uthman doing? How was his wife doing? And the last thing that was told to the Prophet ﷺ, they told him, Ya Rasulullah, Uthman just got on the ride. He had a ride, like a donkey or a horse, prepared it, made sure it was comfortable, and then he asked his wife to get on top and he walk the animal the entire way. Can you imagine the respect, the chivalry, keeping your wife comfortable the entire time, walking her there? That's how he was described. Now, there are a few moments in Uthman's life when he comes back from Abyssinia and he migrates to Medina and he settles with the Prophet ﷺ. I want us to imagine a few things. Number one, the first thing is he did not attend Badr. He did not attend Badr. And the reason why he did not attend Badr is because Badr, at the very beginning, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made an announcement that it was going to be something small, a small skirmish. It was not intended to be bigger than it was. And Ruqayya, the Prophet ﷺ's daughter, Uthman's wife, was sick. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ saw Uthman really, really stressed and worried. He told her, Uthman, stay with your wife. Sit with her, comfort her, and you get the ajr of being with us, and whatever gain we get from this, you have a share because you intended and you're genuine in your intention. So keep that in mind. In addition to that, when it was time to prepare the community, and they were going through a difficult time, after Badr, and some say after Uhud, the community, the Muslims were struggling. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he says, we need to have our own independent source of water. They didn't have their independent source of water before that. So the Prophet ﷺ suggested, who's going to buy us a well? Who's going to be able to get us a well? And a well that is able to accommodate the growth of the Muslim community. So Uthman was very strategic. He said, I'll take care of it, Ya Rasulullah. And he went and he found a well called the well of Roma. And he said to the man who owned the well, how much would you ask in order for me to buy this well? He said, 80,000 dirhams. 80,000 dirham, 80,000 silver coins. Uthman said, okay, well, it's a bit too much. Look at the negotiation. He said, okay, I don't mind sharing. So what I'll do is I'll buy half of it. So I'll only have half of the days. So my people will come and drink from it one day, and then you can own it the other day. You can use it for whatever you want. And so the man says, okay, sure, no problem. How much would you do for that? How much would you accept for that? He said, well, I'll take around, let's say 18,000. In another narration, 12,000. So imagine bringing down from 80,000 dinars to even less than, we're talking about less than half, less than a third. And the man agreed. And what happened over time, the man realized that he might as well just sell the whole thing because maintenance and whatnot is just easier if there's one owner. So the man himself came and said, look, I'll sell you the whole thing. Uthman said, okay, how much do you want for all of it? He said, just give me another, 8,000 and I'll give it to you. So what would have cost 80,000, he ended up buying for around 22,000. Tamam? And he was able to give the Muslims a source of water that they would be able to use to quench their thirst. Not only that, in the battle of Uhud, something very strange happened. In the battle of Uhud, there was this man, Abdullah ibn Qami'ah, who made the announcement. He was in the battle, and he was one of the people that were able to take Mus'ab ibn Umayr down. And Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he was one of the jewels of youth of the Muslim community. He was sent to Medina to teach Islam before the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina. But Mus'ab looked like the Prophet ﷺ, and Abdullah ibn Qami'ah killed Mus'ab, so he took advantage of that time as Mus'ab is drained in his blood. May Allah protect us, Ya Rabb, and accept them as our martyrs. He made the announcement that the Prophet ﷺ passed away. And the companions panicked. They panicked during Uhud. And many of them ran back. They said, well, we have to protect Medina. If we lost the Prophet ﷺ, at least let's not lose our family and our homes. So they ran back to protect Medina. And Uthman was among those that rallied people to come back and said to them that if Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the one, if he really has passed away, then there's no point to protect our family or children. There's no point in life if the Prophet ﷺ has passed away. He was among the companions who heard that and said it and echoed it. And then he came back with the companions to defend, even though he was later on accused. You can see what people are going to use later on who are going to defer with him. They're going to start saying, oh, you weren't there for Badr. You left Mecca to be safe in Abyssinia. See, they're going to frame the narrative in that way. And when it came to Uhud, you were the one to run away and go back to Medina. But he was actually doing that to bring people back, to rally the troops. So do you see how the narrative is going to be rebuilt by those who are going to have an issue for whatever reason with Uthman, unfortunately, to paint him in a negative way. In Hudaybiyah, the Prophet Muhammad went with Uthman and the companions, and he saw in a vision that he's going to be entering Mecca safely. So they were camped outside to negotiate with Quraysh. The story is long, but we're going to focus on one of its chapters. The Prophet said, I need somebody. Imagine they're outside Mecca, so close to the Kaaba where everybody's allowed to do tawaf. It's the free place where everybody can come regardless of their deen. But the Quraysh prevented the Muslims from entering. So the Prophet said, I need to find somebody to go negotiate with Quraysh. Abu Bakr, can you go? He said, no, Quraysh doesn't like me much anymore. Umar, can you go? Umar says, Quraysh doesn't like me much anymore. But let me tell you, a man that Quraysh loves, and if anybody's able to negotiate with them, it would be Uthman. Regardless of everything, Uthman is still loved by them. He's respected by them. He carries himself with that respect, and they would be able to negotiate with him. So he went, and he was able to enter and negotiate. And when he entered Mecca, Quraysh respected him. So the leader of Mecca at the time, and I want this to sink in, he invited him and he told him, I want you to go and go around the Kaaba and do tawaf. If you want, it's open for you. Now, Uthman had not done tawaf for years. If you do the math, because he went to Abyssinia and then went to Medina, we're talking about roughly around 10 years. He has not been able to go tawaf around the Kaaba. If maybe even 13 years, depending on some estimates. And now he's given the chance to go and enter the house of Allah, and if you want to enter the Kaaba, but what does he say? He says, Wallahi, I will not do tawaf except and unless it is with the Prophet Muhammad next to me. And he was able to negotiate with Quraysh. Of course, they held him. Quraysh wanted to do what? Wanted to intimidate and anger the Muslims. So they decided to hold Uthman and keep the conversation longer than it should be. And when the Muslims were trying to figure out what happened to Uthman, the Quraysh started to spread the news that Uthman was killed intentionally, so that they would provoke the Muslims to attack. And then if the Muslims attack, it would give Quraysh an excuse to attack. This is one of their tactics. But the Prophet ﷺ, he brought all the companions together and he said, everybody put your hand. So they all put their hand, when they're taking an oath. They said, if Uthman is killed, then they betrayed every trust there is. If they killed our messenger, which we sent, and our ambassador, then this means war. We did not come with the intention of war, but if they betrayed the trust, then we would be ready to go to war. Do you all accept? They said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. Then the Prophet ﷺ, with tears in his eyes, he put his hand above all of their hands, and he says, imagine his right hand is at the very bottom, his left hand is at the very top of the pile, and this hand is on behalf of Uthman, my son-in-law. In the case that he's alive, I know that he would have given this oath of commitment, therefore I give it on his behalf. Imagine the love that Uthman had for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the love that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had for him, to be able for him to vouch. When the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in your absence would say that if he was not here, he would, therefore I give the promise on his behalf. This is who Uthman is. And again, there are many chapters, but we're trying to keep it concise, focus on that which allows us to build a personal profile of who Uthman is. Very quickly, in the next 5 minutes, we'll wrap up, inshallah, because Maghrib is here, but I hope, inshallah, that at least it gives us excitement to pursue more the life of Uthman ibn Affan. Very quickly, in the Jaysh al-Usra, when it was time for the Muslims to go and march towards Tabuk, an army of 100,000 plus was described as waiting to come and attack Medina. The Prophet ﷺ said, we need to be preemptive, and we need to go there before they come anywhere near Medina. So the Prophet ﷺ, he began to get ready and began to prepare the army, and around 30,000 Muslims were ready to go with him to meet the Byzantines, to meet the Romans before they come. The Prophet ﷺ had 30,000 men, but he did not have enough food, he did not have enough arms, he did not have enough rides for people. So he began, he started with the third level on the minbar, and he started calling to the people that were around him. How many of you would be able to support and contribute? People gave what they could, but it was not enough. Then he asked again and again, and Uthman put his hand up, and at first he gave 100 camels. Then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ asked again, who would give? Uthman saw nobody raising their hand, he raised his hand again, I will give 200. So imagine he gave 100, another 100, 200. Then the Prophet ﷺ asked who would give again. Nobody was given, putting their hands up because it was a very difficult time. Not many people had. But Uthman put his hand up again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, a total of 9 times, because he was shy to see Rasulullah ﷺ asking and nobody giving. He did not want the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to be in that situation, and he had, so he said in total, Ya Rasulullah, I have 950 camels, they're all yours, and 50 horses to make it 1,000, plus the entire cost of the campaign, I'll give the money, plus the wealth that is required to sustain the army there and back, I'll take care of it. Single-handedly. So he was known as the man who prepared the Jaysh of Usra. This was his generosity. How many of us can say we did something like that? You know, the bit of the well that he purchased, and some of the water, also when he went back to Mecca, he bought another well in Mecca and gave it as sadaqah jari for the Muslims. That well is still sustaining many, many localities in Mecca till this day. And the well that he purchased in Medina is still sustaining many people and many families till this day. Imagine the ajr that he's acquired over the generations. And when you go for Mecca and Medina, ask about those places and visit them. Very quickly, the Prophet ﷺ, when he passed away and Abu Bakr passed away and Umar passed away, Uthman ibn Affan was elected as the Khalifa. And I want this to, again, very few, just to give us, just the keys to understand his life better. And inshallah, hopefully down the line, we can even have a greater focus, like a much more focused conversation on who Uthman is. When Uthman ibn Affan became the Khalifa, he did wonderful things. In the 12 years that he served, the first 6 years, what he did is he implemented the dawaween. So everybody was getting paid a stipend for their work. He made the administrative roles organized. He continued to expand the Muslim community. You know, Muslims entered Russia and Ukraine, nowadays, these regions. They entered those areas in the time of Uthman. How many of you guys knew that? He commissioned the Muslims to enter those regions. You know the Chinese region now, the CPR, the Chinese Public Republic, the Muslims entered in the time of Uthman, solidified their base. Muslims went all the way to Libya by the time of Uthman, and he made the plan for Muslims to go all the way. In his time, he said, I want to witness the Muslims going all the way to the Maghrib, to the Moroccan region. So all these expansions, he took care of the families of those that passed away as martyrs in the war. He had a stipend given to them. He had private scholarships available to anybody who wanted to pursue knowledge anywhere in the Muslim community. They could apply and come and study in Medina. Of course, he was the one that compiled the Quran. And he himself was a writer of the Quran. He used to write the Quran. He was familiar with the Quran, which is why we say the Uthmanic script, because he was the one that was responsible with, again, the likes of Zayd ibn Thabit and others, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and others, coming together to write the Quran and to compile the Quran and to verify the recitations of the Quran. And even more important, his justice was such that he made a deal. He said, anybody who was wronged by any of the people that work for me or the people that work for the state of the Muslim community, I will be going to Hajj every year. And you come to me during Hajj, wherever you are from. And if you have to borrow money to get there, borrow money, and I will take care of it when you come. Come to me in Mecca, this specific time, in the time of Hajj, and any issues that need to be resolved, I will personally resolve them. So before the Hajj season, he would go 10 days, And he would sit with his assistants, and anybody could come to complain to him or to issue any verdict or to have any conversation as they wished. And he would make sure that it was resolved. Radiallahu anhu. This is the legacy of Uthman. There are, inshallah, just a few moments. Did Maghrib just come in, by the way? Did it just kick in, or just a few minutes? 2 more minutes? Right. If you allow me, how many of you are comfortable sitting back after Maghrib for just 5-10 minutes? Is everybody okay? Put your hand up if you're comfortable, please. Okay, if you're uncomfortable for whatever reason, put your hand up if you cannot stay. Okay, alhamdulillah. So, I know I socially pressured you there to not stay. Okay, inshallah. But what we'll do, inshallah, we'll pray Maghrib just to respect the time for Salah. We'll get ready for Salah, we'll pray Salah, and then we'll come back, inshallah, after Salah, briefly for 5-10 minutes, inshallah, to close the conversation. Barakallahu feekum, jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you can help us push the chairs back just a bit to make space for the salah, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.